Hello, Karen. First,
Hey,
Paul left us unsupervised tonight.
I know. Risky
Yeah,
move. Risky move.
yeah. So for those who have been thankful to all those who watch us, but Paul has taken on an extremely impressive and busy job in Salt Lake. So we'll be back next week. But he needed to get some more important things done tonight. But Karen and I are going to soldier on here and talk a little bit about some of the really interesting things going on tonight in the world of politics. So how are you doing, Karen, up there in the streak haven of New England there with the Red Sox going so
Yeah,
great.
we're
So
just basking in the glory. It doesn't have the same oomph though without Paul here to just sit there and just look
yeah,
dejected as we talk
right,
about the Red Sox doing well.
exactly. Well, he it's funny. I mean, they were 15 and a half behind the Yankees, and they're gonna be the Yankees look at their win. They both look like wins tonight. They're gonna be two behind the Yankees, only one in the loss column. It's just absolutely insane. I
Yeah.
gotta say, I had given up. I was just figuring they would just try to trade all their better players for prospects, but it is fun. This is a fun team. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's so much more fun when they win.
Yeah. But I think people too who don't live in New England, and again, and our winters aren't as bad as they used to be, but it's the Red Sox are the summer, and so
Hmm.
in New England, when the Red Sox season's over, we're thinking about winter again. And which of
Yep.
course we got the Patriots, but so it's more than just there's somebody our minister in Greenwich a few weeks ago said how they use that term in New England that use summer. And I think people don't realize because it's such a fleeting moment in the Northeast how important
Yeah.
it is.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. That's why we hold on to it with both hands with a death grip.
exactly. Exactly. I'm really excited we're able to do this tonight because and I've gone into an item about my experiences in Michigan. Michigan is a really interesting place tonight with the primaries and multiple primaries going on there. Because I think it's going to really be not just it could be a big difference in if we get the Senate or not, but I think it's really making a big statement about where the Democratic Party is right now. So
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the recent stuff with the Attorney General debacle, the news just keeps being negative and negative on the GOP and the MAGA. And so I think, it puts the primaries that are happening in a really interesting light because people are, they're not going back to 2 years ago for their, you know, oh, well, this happened back in the presidential election and this happened. There's so much news coming out every hour practically that, honestly, if you're paying attention, you should be tearing your hair out. You should be, saying, well, I'm not going to vote for these people anymore. The war keeps dragging on. The lies just keep piling up. So, I mean, I think, hopefully GOP is just defeating itself at this point.
yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's interesting because I was watching some of the not exit polling, but people that are talking to outside the polls in Michigan. And this is sort of the stuff I heard in Pennsylvania in 2024 is them talking about Democrats not giving people anything to vote for. They're just saying don't vote for them. And frankly, Trump is so unpopular that it's going to carry a certain amount of weight, but will it be enough to get the Senate and all? You know, we've talked about it, and I think do people like Charles Schumer really create a movement? Or do we need a
Yeah, no.
further left party to create a movement?
I mean, I think it's hard because, even in the Democratic Party, you have a bunch of old, rich white guys
Yep.
who frankly look like wet blankets. They're not, we've talked about this before on the podcast that, you know, we don't want to sink to their level, but it would be nice to feel like that somebody was fighting back a little. Um, and some of that is, obviously there's only so much you can do if you don't have a majority to pass things and whatever. But the other part of it is just, average people who don't understand the way everything works in the House and the Senate are just like, why, why are we releasing,
Sure.
Dr. Fauci's personal diary, but we can't get the Epstein files released?
Sure.
Like,
And the truth is, when the Republicans weren't in power during those years, and when Biden was president, and the Republicans had the Senate, like I remember, Tuberville holding up all those, those promotions in the military, like, there are mechanisms you can use, and you get
Hmm.
people, and I do think you got to read the room a little if you're Schumer, and again, the Democrats putting Schumer in as their leader is make a show of it. At some point that's going to resonate and it's going to get people motivated. But you wonder why we can't raise money or whatever. But saying it's one thing to not have any power, which right now we don't, but it's another thing to just capitulate the fact we don't have any power.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think people are looking for there to be a little more fight in the dog,
Yeah,
frankly.
exactly. Leadership more than anything else to really come
Yes.
down to it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was listening to, I think I told you, I was listening to Lawrence in the middle of the night to go help my dog last night, and driving back and forth between Connecticut and New Jersey. And Tallarico came on. Actually, he was on Rachel for about little half hour. And I mean, he again, he's not everybody's cup of tea because he does lean into the religious side more than a lot of people would like, whatever. But man, he is covering a board that is really fascinating. Like he's going to appeal to a lot of different people because he's kind of crafting this message. It's not a typical Democratic message. It's extremely progressive in some levels. It's got a religious overtone in others. And it's like, it just might be. I mean, like, obviously Trump found a message that worked despite his all sorts of insanity, craziness, or whatever. Is Tallarico now? Is that where we need to find ourselves? Like, be all as many things you can be, as be as many people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's why the Democratic Socialists and the progressives are doing well is because there's a hook. They're
Yeah.
saying something that resonates with people, and like it or hate it, there are people that have very deep religious convictions, and
Yeah.
that can be all over the map, right? It can be with an established, conventional religion. It can be more of a spiritual kind of thing. It can be kind of a more minority religion in this country. But maybe kind of appealing to and leaning into his beliefs without taking them, to kind of the extreme and that illogical piece that we keep talking about is how can you say be a good Christian and then but we're okay, murdering civilians in the street. Like,
Well, I think Paul's philosophy, and Paul, I think, is he's shown he's walked a walk on this one, and is just golden rule: be good to
mhm,
people, etc. And I think that's where the party needs to find itself. It is like religion. You're never going to find somebody who's going to check every single box. But
no,
if
no.
they come from the right place and you come from the right place, you should be able to find you should be able to find some middle ground, right? So
Right, right. I
yeah,
mean, and that's what Paul's been saying,
yeah,
pretty consistently since we've been talking is
sure,
just be a good person,
yeah,
right?
exactly,
Care about your neighbors, care about the people in your community. And, that's supposedly what the backbone of Christianity is
sure,
and
exactly,
most religions. And yet, the people who have taken religion and really turned it on its ear
sure.
have really lost that message.
Exactly. And honestly, that's why we started the title of this was I was chatting with Paul about it, literally a couple of years ago. And I love that image, of the tables being turned again, not to get too into whatever, but it's because they've supposedly co-opted the message, and they're exactly not what the message is, and that's I
Right.
think what was important. But and it's really interesting because obviously, I think we're finding more and more that the people who are most Christian are people who don't have Christian next to their name,
Yeah. Yes.
so many times in our society, So
Yep.
um,
Yep. And it's, there's a long historical precedent for that.
sure,
That is not new,
yep,
unfortunately.
sure,
Using the Bible and religion to justify atrocities
yep.
is unfortunately, it's not just us, it's not just this country, it's
No,
other places too. So
well, it's not
yeah,
just our time, right? It's like you watch The
no,
Sopranos. It's all about the guys who they do atrocious things from Monday to Saturday, but as long as you go to church on Sunday, everything's fine. It's
right,
like,
right, right.
you know,
Yeah, yeah. Better to do first and ask
yeah,
forgiveness afterwards,
sure.
kind of thing. Yeah, no, I
Mhm.
mean the Crusades and
Oh
there's
yeah,
just so
definitely.
there's it's not at all to say this is
Sure.
new territory for us right now. Just feels like it to us because we're living it.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever, this is a quick story, but when I went to, I went to West Point my freshman year, my plebe freshman year, and then I transferred to Boston College and, we did our ROTC there. And, and ROTC got kicked off campus during the Vietnam War. And they were like, well, it's because we're a Christian institution. I'm like, I think, and again, I'm Christian, I'm obviously supportive, but I think most of the wars in the world history have had some form of Christianity involved in them.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's necessarily a thing. So yeah, it's kind of funny, but I think, and I think you got somebody like El Said who, a really good person, just at the end of the day. I mean, I think it's, overtones of a lot of things. And Michigan is interesting because it does have a very heavy Muslim population relative to the size of the country, size of the state. But but he's really someone who's, he's walking the walk. I mean, he's being outspent in this primary like 10 to 1, and I don't think it's hurting him at all,
yeah,
because he's sending out a message that's working.
yeah. I mean, I think that's some of the places where the Democrats lost. They weren't sending out a message to the Hispanic population. Um, Depending on which area of the country, the black population. It just, for whatever reason, the message was not grabbing people. Um, I heard in the 2016 after the 2016 election, a number of educated Hispanic people talking to me about why they voted for Trump. And it was like, wow. I mean, we didn't even know the depth of his
No.
depravity yet. And it was just surprising, but there was some, and it, again, not to generalize, but it really seemed that the Hispanic population struggled with the idea of, um, embracing the Democrat.
And I may have, and I think, yeah, I think there's a couple overtones there too. One is because there was so much, socialism to communism in especially Central and South America, that people escaped that came here, that I think there was a natural tendency to be anti-leftist. But really, I think they were anti-authoritarian. I think
Hmm.
the version of authoritarian they saw was leftist, and so they blamed it on leftists. But I might have brought this up to you and Paul before, but in 2024, I was campaigning in Pennsylvania, and it was one of the last stops I had, and we ran into a family that the last name, it was a popular Puerto Rican name, for lack of a better word. And you get these, a lot about the people before you knock on their door. You got a lot of data, and it's called BAN, the system that they give you. And so we're knocking on the door, and it's like, and my friend Gina, who went to high school with, and I were, it was our last knock. It's all going to be good. We're going to go, get a drink after, go home. And it's a family of five, and they're all Democrats. So we knock on the door and say, hey, just want to make sure you're going to vote for Kamala. And oh, no, absolutely not. We're all voting for Trump. But this was like a little pink houses situation. Like it's this little cute house on this main road. We passed by it many times before, many times after, because they were right at this major intersection. And it was just like a gut punch. And this
Yeah,
was actually, it was the same day that they had that rally in Madison Square Garden where they really went anti-Puerto Rican. So I always kind of
yeah,
wanted to stop by afterwards and ask them, did you change your mind? But that would
yeah.
have been against the
How's
rules. It would not
how's
have
that
ever
all
done that.
working for you?
You
Yeah.
would never done that. But it was a gut punch. It was like, my
Hmm.
God, if we can't get across to this group of people who, what chance do we have?
Right.
And I think it's a lot of what we see going on now.
Well, I think, again, it's that, F around and find out kind
Yeah.
of thing, is that you don't want to see people get hurt. But, there is something to, the farmers are realizing like, oh, we can't, our farms are going bankrupt. We can't afford fertilizer. We
Yeah.
can't, the tariffs, all that stuff. And you kind of want to be like, well, you get what you pay for.
Exactly.
So how is that all working out for you
It's like,
now?
how did they think Trump knew or cared anything about farmers? Do you
No.
think the guy's
And
ever put any dirt on his hands?
right, no,
Yeah.
no. And
Real,
and
like real dirt. I'm sure he's got plenty of dirt on his hands, not
yeah,
dirt on
different
not
kind of
dirt.
dirt, different kind of dirt. But
Exactly.
farmers have benefited from the government's,
Oh yeah.
for years, for
Yeah.
decades, right? So it's like that somehow you think this person with, how many dozens of failed businesses
Yeah.
and all that stuff, yeah, like you said, knows anything about farming.
Yeah.
Probably has not touched a vegetable in his life.
Exactly. And he won't eat a
Either,
vegetable apparently
right,
either.
no, I mean touch in any way, shape, manner, or form. Um, how do you think, how can you literally just listen to him and think that he's got any of your interest in any corner of his mind?
And not to grind on farmers all night, but the ethanol program is one of the probably most socialistic things this country's ever done. We actually probably waste more energy creating ethanol than ethanol creates, and it's just the subsidy to keep corn prices. It's just
Right.
it's nuts. And
Yeah.
no, so I think you're exactly right. And I think you've got you've got all sorts of voters, I think, out there who are, voting against their own interests for a guy who has never shown any ability to, have any care about any of their worries. And even it's all
No.
the whole thing now with him with affordability, the way he has to enunciate it, it's like how it's some sort of complex word that just got created. It's like,
I feel like it is a stretch for him because he doesn't understand it, right? This
yeah,
is like a 4-year-old learning a new word that they can't quite
yeah,
figure out what does it mean, how does it fit into their life, how do they apply it. So it does feel a little bit to me like he is learning a new word, and
yeah,
this is not a guy that ever has had to worry about whether something was affordable or not.
yeah.
Not that he had the money, but he had
Well,
credit,
his
right?
daddy had the money, man.
Right,
He sucked everything. His daddy had the money, and just at the moment when he was in trouble, the apprentice saved him. That's basically the story
right,
of Donald Trump. Just at the
right.
time daddy's money was about to run out, the apprentice jumped in. No,
Yeah,
yeah, the whole thing with could you imagine? I mean, you again, we kid around about how young you are, but I can remember when Carter was running against Reagan, and people, and again, we were on the Reagan side, but people throwing peanut shells at the TV screen, and again, there was a lot of economic overtones. It really came from Nixon, but that were similar, but nobody was disparaging the fact that people were struggling, um,
right, right.
it wasn't like they're almost mocking people who are struggling financially. It's crazy.
Yeah, I somehow and again, we could probably dive into this with the history of it, but being poor is some kind of moral failing.
Yeah.
Because going back to religion again, is that, the reason that you're doing well is because God is smiling upon you because you're praising him enough, or you're a good enough Christian, or insert your religion of choice. And so if you're poor, obviously God is punishing you. And so therefore we must all shit on you
Yeah.
because God's
Exactly.
not giving you
If
anything. And it's
if
just
if
like,
if you're not strong in economics, you deserve to burn in hell kind of mentality, right? So yeah.
right, yeah.
I don't think that was in the Bible anyway. Even the Old Testament didn't have that in there. I
No, no, because I mean, yeah, I mean, I suppose the kings were doing well, but most
yeah,
people, it was the kings and everybody else. There wasn't
yeah.
there wasn't
No,
anything in much in the
exactly.
middle.
Exactly. No, I think I had a guy, this is during the 2012 election. And it was kind of a it was a weird situation. His ex-wife was very liberal, I knew or whatever, but I'm at a party and I'm talking to him. He ran he was a person of a minority class, let's put it that way. And he ran a hedge fund, I believe, in Manhattan. And this is when Romney was talking about the job creators, that they're the job creators. And he's going and he's giving me that riff. And I told him, I said, dude, look, I said, if you could make the exact same amount of money with half as many people, would you do it? He goes, of course I would. I go, that's why you're not a job creator. You're a labor user. If the job
Mm,
creator says, I'm going to keep, you're like Schindler's List. I'm going to keep my people employed because I'm being benevolent. You're not being benevolent. You need their labor. They're
right.
not a job
Yeah.
creator.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think this is what people don't understand about the world we're in right now. They will burn it down. Is it anything? It's such a transactional mindset that if I can take something from you and I win and you lose, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
That for every winner has to be a loser.
Right. Yeah. No, somehow it doesn't work right if everybody is winning enough, right? Like, yes, there can only be first. Like, it used to drive me crazy. I would know people that would say, "Oh, second place is first loser," and
Yeah.
it's like that is such a flawed statement,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Like,
Or Talladega Nights, you're the first or last.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like no, and that mentality, right, carries right into the economics of it, right? Like, we can all be doing okay.
Exactly.
And some people doing a little bit better, maybe some people doing a little bit worse. But if everybody is okay,
Yeah.
that's also okay. Like that's also good. I don't know when that or
You know what
why
it does?
that.
You know what it does too, Karen, and I gotta admit, I have not followed this well in my life, is I think we all just want peace. You know what I mean? And I think when, I understand, you're young, you want to set the world on fire, whatever, people, you want to go out, but you get a certain point in life, you know what? I don't want to have to worry about it. It's just, I don't want to have to worry, is the market up, is it down? Am I going to afford my retirement? I just want to just have a little bit of peace. And
Yeah,
that's the one thing I don't understand how anybody can make an argument that Trump just is giving nobody any peace.
no,
Supporters, not supporters, you can't have peace under Trump.
no, because there's always threats. There's
No.
always,
Yeah.
somebody's got the whatever the list of your sins
Yeah.
that they're going to release, or that you're going to get indicted for, or whatever. Like it's just, yeah, there's so much chaos. It's so emotionally exhausting, even when you think you're not
Yeah.
really in the middle of it. We're in the middle of it.
No,
It's like
exactly.
saying,
Exactly.
well, the forest fires don't affect me because they're not in my state. Well, but the smoke's blowing over, and we're
Yeah.
sending firefighters, and you know, it, you know, any part of the country is as likely to catch on fire as any other part at this point.
Well, we also both live in states that we know if there's a disaster and we need FEMA or come, he's not claiming an emergency in a blue state.
Oh
He's
no,
basically made that
no.
very clear. And states like California and New York, they could probably afford to do their own relief, but Oregon's not going to be able to do its own relief, or Washington. They're going to probably need other blue states to help them, because that's going to be a
Hmm.
huge hit to their budgets. It's
Yep.
it's just it's great. I think, and again, I think you probably feel this way too, and I think we've alluded to it a little bit, is it was my lesson of Copenhagen. And I remember when we talked about it, we did I think what I told you, we did the bus tour up to the Hamlet Castle and all that stuff, and
Mm,
and we were talking, and the guy on the bus was really building Denmark up, and he was saying, I think, and again, it may change a little bit with inflation last years, but I think average, most incomes are between, they're under $100,000, and again, it
mhm.
might be a little higher now with inflation, and then it might have been 100,000 euros, but but nobody's worried about that. If you get fired tomorrow, I'm worried about being homeless. Nobody's worried about that.
Right.
And I remember just being there on a Sunday, and just people were just genuinely relaxed, just
Yeah.
genuinely having fun.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It feels very unbothered, right?
no,
And
and I just think
just
anywhere you go in the United States, you sense a tension. Again, even I would say even before Trump, that there's always a "what have you done for me lately" mentality that doesn't have to exist, doesn't exist in other parts of the world.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really sad statement on where
Yeah,
we've come as a country.
yeah.
Um,
And it's
yeah.
not the country I would have thought we were even 15 years ago. It's not, and
Yeah, I mean, I was, you get really hopeful that we're being progressive, right? That
yeah,
maybe we're not seeing, I mean, I feel like the first big thing that I remember feeling like maybe we've taken a giant step forward is the marriage equality,
yeah,
right? That was the biggest one to me. That, like, and I'm sure there was a bunches of other little ones here and there. And I mean, I remember Don't Ask, Don't Tell was big for its time, but there was still a lot of criticism of that. But the marriage equality thing to me felt like, okay, maybe we're actually moving forward.
yeah.
And now it just feels like we're fighting and scrapping for everything. And it's just, you know, basic rights, basic
Well,
freedoms. We're going backwards hard,
yeah, well, they're going
you
to
know.
overturn the Connecticut law soon. It was a Supreme Court decision. It was who whatever versus Connecticut is going to be that's where almost all our privacy rights are built on. It's where HIPAA
Mhm.
exists for. And they're going to overturn that. And it's not just that HIPAA goes away. It's like so many things. You're letting the government in your bedroom at that point.
Yeah,
Everything goes
yeah.
away. And people don't understand that and especially it was compressed in the period. Paul probably was old enough to remember it, but I wasn't. But it was in the 60s into the 70s when you had a Supreme Court that it was not nine liberal justices, but they were, I always said, like, we don't have to have liberal justice. We need to have just fair justices will be fine.
Mm,
But they built these decisions one on top of another, and they're all built on it. And now not only are they taking away things like Roe versus Wade, but they're going to take away the things that allowed Roe versus Wade to happen.
hmm.
And they're going to undermine so many of our rights. And I don't think people have no idea they think of it in very, I think, myopic terms, where they think one thing, they don't think about the ripple effects of everything that's going on.
Right. No, not at all. I mean, talking about, voting against your own interest, women,
No,
right? It's like you want to be a trad wife, go for it. You
no,
want to live on the prairie and have 9 babies,
sure.
12 babies, 14, go ahead. Like,
No,
I'm not going to stop you. That doesn't impact my life at all.
no,
But for you to actively bully and vote to overturn other people's right to
no.
make a choice is just so illogical. So, and yet, how many women have died in Texas because,
No.
the abortion laws and the medications that, the woman has to be actively dying before they can do anything medically, or the doctors are going to be prosecuted with felony. Like,
One of the things I thought that was interesting, Tellerico said last night is, Houston, it's like it's becoming like the third largest city in the country. It's fourth right now with Chicago, but then depending on, the maps, depending on what you define as Houston, Harris County. But in Houston, I think, and my cousin lives down there. I've been down there with him, and I think they've got more medical centers per square mile than anywhere in the country. It's some crazy number, but
really?
yet it is like these. He said last night it is the unsafest place in the country for a Black woman to have a child. Yet it's not a place that has, the urban hospital to run away because there's no Medicaid. And yet,
Right,
because of, the fact they haven't picked up Medicaid, et cetera, and you're the fourth largest city in the country is, and again, it doesn't go across gender, it doesn't go across race lines, but is the unsafest place in the country. It's insane, that
right. And yeah, and if it's not even a what's the equivalent of a food desert, a hospital desert,
no,
right?
exactly,
It
exactly,
doesn't even sound like
exactly.
that's what the case is. It's like,
Yeah.
wow.
No, exactly. So now I think it's just I think when we started off this election season, I think ever since, pretty quickly we got into Trump, I think there was a lot of regret votes. People regretted their votes, and you could see we were going to have pretty good tailwind even with all the gerrymandering. But at first I was like, and brought this up a couple times. Yeah, we'll win the House. It'd be great if we could win the Senate because I never thought we'd have a chance in 2026. We gotta win the Senate. I mean, just
Hmm.
the damage he's gonna do over the next 2 years, especially if the House is running investigations on him around the clock, they are gonna abuse all the judicial system of the Senate. Everything he can
Yeah,
do to the Senate, he is gonna ram stuff down our throat. And it has become now more imperative than I mean, I thought it would be bad, and it's probably been as bad as I thought it'd be, but it's how much worse can it get in the next 2 years if we don't get the
yeah.
Senate and stop him right now?
And we keep saying that, and you keep thinking you're in the basement, and then you realize, oh no,
Oh
there's a
yeah,
subfloor.
there's no bottom. There's no
No,
bottom.
no, there really isn't. And it's just kind of, it's wild. It's, you because like you said, you knew it was going to be bad, but then
Yeah,
living in the middle of it is just so much worse. And I just think of my kids, and the one comment that was made to me is like, you keep saying there's unprecedented times, but I've never known anything else. And I
exactly.
was like, oh, gut
Exactly
punch. Like,
understandable. No, exactly.
you
And
don't know how things are supposed to be running.
how again, that your kids' ages and my son especially his age are pretty similar, and you're and again, that group's dealing, I think, between some of the stuff they had to go through in COVID and all, and they're all the generation after 9/11. there's a lot of depression running around that group anyway. I mean,
Hmm.
and then now, the job situation, it's like, how
Housing
much can we put
situation.
those kids through? So,
Right. Right.
and
And the generation coming up behind them. I mean,
oh
I
yeah,
work
yeah,
with young, school age kids, and I'm just looking at them going, God, how much worse is it going to be for them?
yeah, exactly.
And it's like I can't even fathom it, but it's going to be. I
Exactly. And they don't want to, and again, we can't get anybody get serious about what is an AI, what is our job situation look like in an AI world. And,
Mhm.
it was, I think it was, one of the Warner had put out a suite of proposals a couple weeks ago dealing with the effect of data centers, dealing with the job situation, whatever. And nothing gets,
Mhm.
nobody's moving anything on any of that, but this is going to become the issues of their lives,
Right.
they,
Right.
again, it's the job situation so far isn't like it's going to get. So right now, just as an update, El Said's up by 6.5% on Stevens, 22% in. So yeah, this one's going to look, I thought it'd be up by 10, 15 right now, the way the polls were looking. So it's funny. Stevens is an interesting case. She was when we were in Michigan again, it was the year 2020 was her first year in Congress. Her and Alyssa Slotkin came in together. And I would have thought in 2020 she was dynamic. If it does, I don't know if I've just seen of her, because now it's not looking so dynamic 6 years later.
Mm.
She's looking a little bit, and especially against him, she's looking a little stoic. But yeah, and I mean, there's so much money, and again, a lot of it's coming from APAC, etc. She hasn't, I don't even think she's pulling punches about that now. But the center is really trying to buoy her, but it's closer than I thought it would be, coming around now down to 6.3% now. And again, there's, I had the one thing about the primaries, it's harder. The general election, like they have the Times needle and stuff, and they know the votes that are out and they know which way they go. So they
Mm.
know if they're Democratic, Republican. Here, they probably could do some estimating. Are they progressive or not progressive? But it's a much bigger art. And frankly, in Michigan, it's an open primary, and there's definitely some cases of people, and again, they might be wrong the way they're doing it, but people trying to get on one side or the other because they think it's going to help the two-time loser who's running against them, Rogers. He's lost a couple of senatorial, gubernatorial races, but he is a known commodity in Michigan now. But yeah, that one's holding out pretty good. And we'll see if the seventh comes along. So the seventh is actually very interesting there because that's the bellwether district, Saginaw area, and it's one of only three House districts in the country that's picked every presidential race right since 2004. So
Really?
435 districts, only three have gone every one right. So that means they went Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump. So that's like really that's like
Mm.
psychopathic stuff right there. And so what happened here now is it's a fairly centrist district. It's got a Republican. It's Slotkin's old district. So Slotkin was a centrist, and she when she ran for Senate last time and she won, a Republican took it over. The issue is it's a centrist district. You've got two very centrist, very unbelievably qualified, and I'm going to get the names wrong, so I'm going to leave them alone. But one is an ex-Navy SEAL. I think he worked in the Biden White House, very well thought of. I think he won to get the convention, but he's actually at least likely a three to win it. The other one is a woman who she was the ambassador to Ukraine that resigned when Trump started going against Ukraine. So again, obviously someone who, going to get your attention. So the
Mm.
two of them are splitting the centrist vote in half. So that's why this is why we can't have nice things kind of thing. And
Right.
the far leftist Lawrence, he is he's probably going to win. And it looks like right now he's up by maybe 5-10% again, probably only 20% of the vote in. So that one's interesting because that might be a far leftist might run better in the state of Michigan than in that district. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
district, it might
Yeah.
be problematic. It's such a centrist district. And again, these are the kind of districts we're going to have to win. I think we're going to win the House, but to get to the point where we have a clear majority in the House, which I think we want,
Yeah.
because mostly because it sets us up for future elections. These are kind of districts we're going to have to win, you know.
Right, right. No, it's primaries are so hard because,
Yeah,
whoever's running, they're trying to woo the people,
yeah.
but not say anything too far afield in either direction because
They got to
they
think about
may
the
have to,
general.
right, they have to be
Yeah,
very generalist, and
yeah.
then you might have to walk back some of those
No,
things if you
exactly,
do win the
exactly.
primary. So it's a very delicate thing, I should imagine.
Well, especially with the kind of money that's going to be, I think in this senatorial primary, $80 million have been spent in this Senate primary. And
That's gotta hit new records for
it's a new
primaries.
record, and it's insanity. I mean, it's in our family. I mean, it is though it is one that is going to be, you know, I think again we're going to wake up tomorrow morning to a much more defined where we're heading in 91 days Democratic Party, you know, because
Hmm.
this one I think is telling, and it looks like he's expanding the lead a little bit now. He's up 6.8%. So and I've got I'm not reading the words, but there it doesn't look like they got much clear view on it yet. But I think that it is it's going to be so we were in like I mentioned before we started is you know some sporting events during the regular season feel like you're in the playoffs. This one
Hmm.
doesn't feel like a primary. It feels like we're in the playoffs because I think the implications it's going to have
Right.
on you know not just where the party's going, not just for this period, but this is going to have a big implication on 2028 as well. You know, in terms of
Yeah,
how
I feel like a lot of the primaries are going to feel like presidential elections. Like
yeah.
it's going to feel like real nail biters.
I think the 2028 Democratic primary is going to be the most I mean, the 2016 Republican primary, I think about it was pretty fascinating. I
Mm,
think this is going to be with obviously much more qualified people is going to be that caliber. I think you know, this actually opens the door if Al Saeed wins in this primary and then can win Michigan. What are you thinking of your AOC?
right,
She's got the best brand next to Bernie Sanders of any far leftist. Why aren't you running for president then? If you can
right.
win, if he can win in Michigan, and frankly, next week there's actually another big primary in Wisconsin. We have a far left gubernatorial candidate who's doing very well, who looks like she's going to win. And these are the states you have to win. Pennsylvania, I'm probably more comfortable that you can win from the far left in Pennsylvania than in Michigan, Wisconsin. But if you can win in Michigan, Wisconsin, now I don't know if you can win in Georgia or Arizona on these platforms, but if you win Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, I haven't done the new math, but I don't think I think you win everything if you can win those three states as Democrat, and you really start then to pull together a movement, you know. So,
Yeah. After Kamala, I really worry about another female presidential candidate. And not because they're not qualified, they're
no,
certainly more than qualified, but man, we elected a pedophile rather than elect a woman. And it's just the hatred of women runs so deep in this country, and
it,
particularly minority women. It's scary. It like I not that I want another establishment,
yeah,
old white man, but I at this point I feel like I would take a sure win over
yeah.
a, a historically monumental
Yeah, because I know I hear you.
win.
Another glass ceiling that wasn't broken, right? Yeah, I mean,
Right.
yeah.
Like I don't know. Like I
It
want it
it
so bad, but it's
it just feels like, and this is we're going to talk about this in the coming weeks. It just feels like um, women have to lead us out of this wilderness. I mean, you know, you look at a guy like Tallarico, like Buttigieg here, and these are very well-spoken men who I think have their even a Bashar who I think has got some Tallarico-like skills, but it just feels like as authentic as they might be, that it needs somebody who's it's almost like it's going to need somebody who's going through the pain to get us out of this thing. You know, that's what it feels like.
yeah, I don't disagree. I
Yeah,
just, I don't see people that are moderate saying, "Yeah, I'll go for the woman."
yeah.
I wish like hell they would, but I mean, even,
Well,
women, the number of women that voted for Trump is just absolutely sickening.
and it's the risk, right? You know, it's we don't. we have two data points. But we had two, and they're both against Trump. And
Hmm.
we had two women who were vastly more qualified than I mean, everybody's more qualified than Trump, but
Mm.
and
You
so you,
dog's more qualified than Trump.
yeah, exactly. So you can't say that no matter, so I think there'd be a fair, no matter how, again, and Kamala, frankly, of all the women right now, she's running very well in a lot of the big primary states polling. But man, I think people are gonna be terrified. You're right. I think at some level, if we go back to and again, I think and they just we got to win that one. And I think so much of whether we can win that one's gonna be set up in the next 91 days because if
Right.
you know the only positive, frankly, about us not winning the Senate would be that because I think we're in the House either way, but I think that it would be extremely difficult. Trump's going to continue to do stupid things, and he's not going to have anybody to pin it on himself. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um,
Right.
you know, um, where if there is a Democratic Senate, there's going to be in a Democratic House, there's going to be well, it's a do nothing Congress when, you can't do anything unless you have a filibuster proof majority in the Senate, which obviously we won't have. So, but there'll be this, you get these people all the time, there's just words coming out of their mouth. They have no idea what they mean. It's almost like, if I thought we could live to the next year as him as president, maybe not having the Senate would be a good thing. But
Right. I don't, yeah, there's
yeah,
there's something new coming out every
yeah,
day, every hour about how things are more progressively getting more and more screwed up, and you don't know what to believe except that you can't believe anything.
well,
So yeah, no, I don't think we're surviving 2 more
yeah.
years with him at the helm.
And the thing too is like, let's play. It's all about the economy, stupid, right? That when you had Reagan in charge, either of the Bushes, you might not have liked their economy, but at least you knew they were trying to drive us. This economy, I mean, to me, it's being driven by um, people wanting to make the president happy more than anything else, but
Hmm.
it feels so fragile. It feels such a tinderbox that could blow up at any time. And
Well,
I
it's
learned,
also, it feels like it's just how to make the president and his family
yeah,
richer
yeah,
and his cronies,
yeah,
right? So there's no interest of anyone that's actually, part of this country. I
yeah,
read something this week that said, if the billionaires, disappeared, life would probably still go on. If
yeah,
all the workers disappeared, everything would stop.
yeah.
So like the billionaires don't really do anything for us. And yet this is what everything has now been structured around is how
There,
do we
there,
make them richer? How do we insulate them from prosecution? How do we let them continue being pedophiles? All the things.
yeah. You brought it up that there is not, he does things, and we've said this thing numerous times. He does things every single day. I mean, Capital One saying they've got 250 instances of money laundering while they had to close his accounts. Like, if any president in our history had ever had his accounts frozen by a bank because of money laundering, he's impeached. I mean, it's not, I
Right.
mean,
He's
these are not,
arrested.
yeah, I mean, this is not normal. That's the worst part about it is they've convinced people it's normal. And also it's,
Yeah.
and again, I think the script comes right out of Animal Farm. It comes right out of 1984 that, if people had told us the day, if people, some of us probably imagined it in our worst dreams, but worst nightmares, but if people had told people the day Trump came down the escalator, this, and this is going to happen, he never gets off the ground, but he's given us a
Hmm.
death by a thousand cuts. He's keeps
Yes.
moving the
Yes.
goalposts of what we're willing to accept. And this is where their genius is. They kind of know what they could shove into that corner every time they move the goalposts. And they
Right.
never give us more
Well,
than
and
we
it
can
just,
handle, you know?
it also just, like you said, a tinderbox. It also feels a little bit like, what's the straw?
Yeah.
Where is the straw? And I'm
I think
worried
it
that there
exists.
isn't one, but the world, life, whatever says to me that there's got to be something. There's got
Mhm.
to be some straw that breaks the camel's back. And I don't know if it's him dying. I don't know if it's somebody just finally turning on him. Uh, Musk going crazy and spilling all the secret. Like, I
Well, it
don't
seemed
know.
like
I
that's
don't
where
know
he
what
was
the,
going last year.
I know. Why did he stop that momentum? Jeez.
I know exactly.
It's
He was
just,
finally going to do something right once. I just, it feels like there is so much we don't know in terms of blackmail and there just
mhm,
has to be because these people. I mean, the only reason why these people could be doing what they're doing is A, because he's got stuff so insidious against them that they can never let it come out in public, or B, they know that he's never gonna him and his family are never gonna go out of power. That's what terrifies me because otherwise
right.
they have to realize there's a day of reckoning coming. I mean, McCarthy had his day of reckoning. Roy
Yeah,
Cohn died in poverty. I mean, everybody had their day of reckoning. And
right,
and again, it would be one thing if these were people who were living, paycheck to paycheck. They're multimillionaires. Them and their kids never and their
right.
grandkids never have to work a day in their life, and yet they're continuing to do his work for him. So it terrifies you of why the reason why, which I don't know if we're ever going to know, terrifies the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Because what it makes no
You ever go
sense.
to the old arcades where it was those coin games where you drop a coin and the thing pushes it and
Yeah,
they're all hanging over the edge and it's
yeah,
like, oh, if I just one more, that'll
exactly,
tip them all over and I'll win. And it
exactly.
never did.
And
And
it
it's
just
just that what's the final thing? It's got to happen. Like you said, history tells us that everybody falls eventually, right?
yeah,
The good, the bad, and the ugly. What is it? Please let me live to see this
exactly.
because
This Michigan 7 race is pretty fascinating. It's not a it doesn't have a huge turnout, but 31% in, he's up by 5 points and 6 points. It's only a 2,000 vote lead. So again, it's not a very populated area, but that one. But the far left guy Lawrence is winning. I have a funny story with that whole he belongs, and I don't know if you know them, but they're a group. I don't know that much about them, but they're a group called the Sunflower Group, and a pretty far left group. And they were very big in the 2020 primary in Iowa, in a caucus in Iowa. We were out there working there, and they kind of we were in Iowa City, we weren't in Des Moines, but they kind of one night went and invaded Biden's office. It wasn't they didn't do anything violent, whatever, but it was almost like it was just like Biden people obviously are very sort of mellow, or whatever. It was very in your face thing they did. So I'm not a huge fan, but that one's probably going to be even closer than the senatorial one. And like I said, I don't know on. I think Lansing is involved in that one, so there could be some urban votes coming in late, but they might not have the same things as the other one. It's Tondir and 13. It looks like the centrist is winning there. Only 5% of the vote in. That can't go by that one because that one's another one. But yeah, Michigan's got some pretty fascinating stuff going on, and will be a bellwether as it's prone to be. But no, Karen, I think so. I think we when we originally mapped this out, we were thinking we would probably be talking on Sunday or Monday night, and then next Tuesday we'd have the where's the party stand kind of thing. And I think there was an opportunity here to talk a little bit about it. I think again, for someone who probably, you I think and Paul, and again, I see where we're going as a party, and I think it's a good thing. I just worry about going there too fast and losing the Senate. But I think the progressives are going to win across the board here. I mean, it's the races are reasonably tight. They haven't been called yet, but I do think by Tuesday we're going to have by next week or Sunday night we're going to talk. I think you're going to have a lot of very strong narratives coming about where Democratic Party is and where it's going. Democratic Party is and where it's going. But I think
yeah, I mean, I
there's going
think
to be a lot of definition around things.
I think I agree with you. I don't want to see things change too fast either because
Yeah,
I'm afraid we're going to leave a lot of people in the lurch. Um, things have to for them to work
yeah,
with people. You have to have a kind of a gradual progression of things. But I think there's a lot of people that are really mad. They're really mad at the establishment. They're really mad at you know people for not standing up and for to letting it get to this point,
yeah,
right? And not that the Democrats could have necessarily stopped um, all of this madness from 2016, but you know again, you're talking about the average person on the street is like, you people are the ones in DC. Why haven't you fixed this?
Well, clearly, I think, yeah, I think every far right movement, far left movement go hand in hand, I think, in democracies. You got to throw what happened in, Soviet Union away. I mean, that was a different time, but you usually have what happens, I think, is you have far left, I call them populist movements that, the world we have, and it seems to come around every 80 years that you have a big populist movement, and they're worldwide movements. I mean, to me, this all goes back to Brexit. Brexit
Mm,
happens in 2016, started a lot of this um, populist movement. And normally, I think what happens is you have a far right movement, a far left movement, and the far right moves further right because they're doing exactly what the Republicans are doing now, trying to scare everybody that the Democrats are the communist boogeyman, and so they move further to the right to
mhm.
counteract that. And that's how that's basically how Hitler gets in power, is by scaring everybody about the communists.
Yeah,
And it's why he was able to kind of co-opt the center. Um, but I think more than anything else, what's got to happen in this moment is we are going to shed votes in the center. And these votes in the center are not reliable votes. They're votes that could be here, they could be going in 2028, definitely in 2030. I think we have a much better chance of solidifying our party if we go more to the left. But those votes have to show up. You know what I'm saying? If
right.
we become a more leftist party, I don't think there's anything wrong with it per se. I think it's better policy. I think it's more humane policy. But those votes got to show up because we're going to lose votes in the center over it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think no matter what, the votes have to show up,
yeah.
right? And yeah, yeah. I just keep hoping people are hurt enough and mad enough to get out and vote, and
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I think it'll be interesting too, what's going to happen in not just in Wisconsin, but I think Connecticut could be a little interesting next Tuesday. I've been bringing this up for a few weeks now, only because I like Lamont a lot, and I think he's done a good job as governor. He does have a little bit of out of touchness going on, and he's I think behind the share, he's the most popular Democratic governor in this country, but this is an August 11th primary, in a state where people summer. So it's gonna be low turnout, and frankly, the activists, and Elliot's got the activists. So that's gonna be an interesting where we go kind of moment as a party as well. But I think if I think it's going to be interesting how the momentum gets created out of tonight and the narrative, because I guarantee you tomorrow you're going to get filled with, a lot more. The word communism is going to be talked about a lot more tomorrow. If
yeah, yeah.
they're going to
I
really be pushing that button. And I think one of the things I found really unsettling this week is and again, it's not the families. I think but we're coming on 25th anniversary of 9/11 soon, and there, supposedly is a petition, and petition with no meaning, of people 65,000 who don't want Mandami to
oh
speak
yeah,
at 9/11, which I think
yeah,
again is so many things. Starts with racism and goes from there, right?
yep,
But I think that's where that's the ugliness we're going to see over the next 91 days, as especially if the party goes more to the left, where they're going to try to say,
yeah.
very basically the non-Americans.
Right. Yeah, no, and I mean that to some point that's the MAGA's one trick pony, right?
Yeah.
Is just hatred and hatred and hatred and
Yeah.
make you afraid, and everyone else is out to get you, and we're the only ones that can protect you, except we're not actually protecting you. So yeah, it's and it's unfortunate that they are such a bunch of one trick ponies, right? And yet we can't seem to get around it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
we can't figure out how to topple that. And
No.
yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it starts with racism and it goes from there.
And it's so much everything, you go back to what the conservative movement has been going back to Goldwater. It's always been about fear. It's always been how can we scare people away from it? And at some point it's almost like we got to look at the light and we got to beat back the fear. We got to,
Hmm.
because you know, um one of the movies I think is a really interesting movie, but it's it was it was a love story and all, was the Michael Douglas and that betting movie, The American President. And
Oh, I
in
love
it,
that movie.
yeah, and I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of truisms about that movie about our country. And it's funny
Hmm.
because you got Richard Dreyfuss, you know, a
The
huge
evil.
liberal playing the conservative guy
Yeah.
and whatever. But I think that movie, it just speaks a lot. It probably speaks more about this moment now than it did about the moment then, about
Yeah.
the way people are and the way they think, And
Yeah. And I remember watching that movie and that big speech he gives kind of at the
yeah,
end. And I
he's
just
like, I don't
remember
give a shit
thinking,
anymore. I don't give a shit
right,
anymore.
right. And it's just, and I remember thinking, watching it, like, why can't politicians, presidents do that? Why can't
Exactly.
they say those things? Why
They need
can't
better
they?
writers.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and and just some kind of belief, right? I mean, supposedly,
Yeah.
when Michael Douglas was the president, he was just speaking from the heart.
Yeah,
He didn't
exactly.
have
Well,
he
his
didn't have a
poll
speech.
numbers were tanking
Right,
until that speech, and then
right. Then
yeah,
it was turned on, and it's like,
Michael
well,
J.
why?
Fox is great. That was probably one of the last
Uh,
movies before he got sick. He was great in that movie.
yeah, yeah. That
Yeah,
was a great cast. That
yeah,
was a great cast.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, yeah, I remember distinctly thinking that about his speech and
yeah.
towards the end of the movie, and just being like, why can't we have leaders that speak like that from the heart and care about people and care about what this country was founded on? And we've gotten so far away from that. It's just so sad.
And you just pray we find a way back. Like you said earlier, history tells us we will, and we've never been in this kind of moment before,
Hmm.
without a civil war type of thing.
Ugh,
Which, God help us, But
yeah.
it just, I think all you can do is take one step forward each day, try to do the
Hmm.
right thing, and hopefully then we get to where we want to go.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's
Just keep
good.
trying to, yeah, I mean, I just keep trying to talk to people, and I don't
Yeah,
want to make politics the center of every conversation I have, but I try to
I agree.
insert little things here and there when people give me an opening. And
Yeah.
so just, well, okay, so tell me a policy he's actually done that's helped. And
And
there's
I think they're
silence.
starting to almost capitulate mentally. That, I
Yeah.
mean, now it's about, well, Democrats aren't doing anything better. But I think the defense of him's gotten thinner and thinner as time's going on.
Yeah.
Too
Well, I
long,
mean,
too much. But
as the hits keep hitting the average person personally at the
yeah,
pump, with the groceries, thinking about the war, the loss of human lives, all of
and
that stuff, I think
the
it's
thing is,
becoming more real for
and this is
people.
not, frankly, it's not. You have to have a extremely high level income not being hit by this economy. I mean, because most people, unless you're really just printing money, most people have figured out ways to piss their money away in a structured basis. They didn't expect all of a sudden everything to be 50%, 30, 40% higher than it cost before. So
Yeah, no.
it's not like, it's not like you have the supposed middle class that exists in this country anymore and poor struggling. You've got people of pretty reasonable, pretty good means who are struggling because you couldn't plan for this. Nobody was
Right.
planning for this.
No, I mean, and the old thing was everyone's what, two paychecks away or
Yeah,
a month away
exactly.
for being homeless, and it's probably been cut in half by now,
Exactly.
right? Assuming that you can
Oh,
afford rents,
exactly.
because you got the age of my kids and your youngest. How are they going to afford a place? And it's not even like they can afford a place with friends, right? It's not even like, oh well, get a roommate, get three roommates, and just power through. They're coming out of school with loans. They can't also pay their car insurance, the rent, the utilities, the groceries, the gas, all of that stuff. Like, even if they're making decent money, which quickly is not becoming decent anymore.
And everything shifts, like, even like, I think for some of them they didn't have to worry so much about cars because they figured they were remote employees. Now,
Mm,
Jamie Dimon's portfolio is getting hurt. We don't have remote employees anymore. He made up a bunch of studies. So things are just shifting like crazy. And you just can't predict for it. So, but
no.
what I do have going on here, Karen, is that I am in a hotel and I've got an air conditioner that's like a psychopath and it's kicking on again. I'm sure it's a little loud. So, but this has been a great conversation. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. And we're gonna have a fun fascinating 91 days. It's not always gonna be fun, but hopefully we're celebrating in 91 days when
Yeah.
finally, this is not going to be the ultimate victory, but hopefully we're back in front in the scoreboard, much like the Red
We'll
Sox
just
these days. So,
right. We'll just white
yeah,
knuckle it together. It'll be fine.
exactly. Anyway, Karen, you take care
You
and
too.
see you next week.